Thanks for joining us on MISC Recruiting Podcast number 2. I'm here with Tom Swerdzewski, a close business partner and friend who lives here in Huntsville, but is the COO of a company named IT Concepts based out of Tysons, Virginia. And Tom was extremely helpful to me early in my career in being a bridge into the Intel community and just government contracting community in general. Taught me a lot about clearances, security, anything, you name it. So it was awesome to learn under you. Pretty good guy. And I would say that I lost my train of thought, guys. Sorry.
So let me step in so I can help you out here. So, what's interesting about Matt, the first time we actually met, it was kind of weird. So at the time we were much smaller, and we'll get into a little bit more about the company here, but I'll talk about kind of how we met. When we first met, at the time I was really struggling to find a staffing partner that could support our business that I trusted. And I think there's not that many people in this industry that fit that bill, especially in the recruiting arena. There's a lot of people that recruit, and there's a lot of people that, kind of portray confidence in the environment as a recruiter. But there's also people that are honest, and they take an honest approach to recruiting. So what I mean by that is some of the recruiting firms that I've worked with in the past, they'll work with candidates and they'll send those candidates to 10 different companies, and they, are very difficult to work with from that regard, because you realize the people that you're trying to compete over to bring into your firm are also talking to 10 other people at the same time on behalf of that recruiter, and it makes it very difficult, and then you start to lose trust with them over time. The other thing about Matt is he's very honest about his approaches. He's honest about his assessment of the candidates, and he has very good instincts. And so when we first met, I actually initiated, I believe, our initial relationship, and I kind of found him on LinkedIn, and I said, you know what, I'm going to try to find someone a little different that hasn't been in this environment for a long time. So I took a shot, and I reached out to a couple other people, to be honest, because I had no idea what I was getting into here with Matt, and he reached back, and we had a quick conversation, and that conversation led to another, and then we actually gave you a shot to kind of fill a position. And as I recall, you turned over an excellent candidate, I believe within like 48 hours, and I was like, holy cow, like I've never had that level of response from a recruiter that I've worked with. And so one candidate led to another, and now we're on, how many years now? We've been...
Let's see, 8 years?
8 years.
Yeah, 2016.
So I cannot believe that Matt has supported our company for 8 years, which honestly, I don't think there's many recruiting firms or individuals in general that are working in an outsourced capacity like Matt does for IT Concepts that can claim the same thing. And I think it speaks to the trust that, we have instilled in each other to work together with this type of relationship, and the quality of MISC in general and what you've been able to supply to ITC. So thanks for having me on, first of all. I think this is a great experience for me to be able to sit here and talk with a friend who I also get to do business with. So.
Yes, you're very welcome. Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. And yeah, I actually thought Tom was spamming me in 2016 when
there you go.
He originally reached out to me, and it was one of those great things that I'm so thankful that I read through the message and then we connected, and it was just a really cool kind of partnership to begin with. I think that I was on vacation the next week after we started working together, and I was at the beach trying to recruit as much as I could for you because I wanted to make a good impression. So that's a memory I'll always have. But I wanted to really ask you a lot of questions about your expertise in the industry today, and kind of get your viewpoint on a lot of different things, how you got your start, what kind of strategies your company uses, what recruiting means to your company as a whole, and how it helps you guys. even using outside vendors like us or your internal team, and just hear a lot of great kind of angles from you with your experience over the years. But yeah, how did you get your start? I was always interested to see. I think it was FPMI that you got your start with.
Yeah, I was going to reveal my age. But, okay, so I first started in government consulting post 9/11. So when 9/11 hit, that was my last year in college. And, just to follow, they actually, had set up a Transportation Security Administration recruitment call center. And it was actually just south of Huntsville in a hub zone certified location. And it was actually affiliated with another consulting firm here. And my first job was actually working for the TSA Recruitment Center. So the TSA Recruitment Center at the time was in Alabama, which most people were probably like, wait, why was it in Alabama? But it happened to be in Alabama, and it actually, at the time, we were supporting the hiring of all the security screeners throughout the United States.
Wow.
Through that center. So they did all the inbound and outbound call center support for anybody who was looking to be hired on as a screener. We also did all the screener testing and all of the background investigation support and all of that out of one consolidated center. And so that was my first gig. I worked in the center, in the call center, and I had no idea what I was doing or why I was there, but I was there. I learned a ton from that opportunity, and actually I got a really a great opportunity early on to be a manager in the call center. So I was 25 years old, and I was managing people who were 40 plus years old, which was a very awkward experience, but it also taught me really a ton about how to operate as a manager, how to manage people, how to build relationships with people, how to communicate well with people. And it taught me a lot about working, for the government, on behalf of the government. So that's kind of how I got my start. And then from there, I quickly was able to move into doing work for multiple different federal agencies in the areas in human capital management. So I moved to work for Department of Homeland Security headquarters. I worked for GAO, Government Accountability Office. I've worked for GSA. I've worked for multiple different federal agencies as a member of FPMI, doing different types of federal human capital consulting. So that's how I really got experience in consulting. When you're in the government space working for a federal client, you learn a lot. And being a consultant of the government, there's nothing that can really replace those types of experiences to get you ready for running, to support running your own business. So that's really, again, that's how I really cut my teeth in federal consulting, and I was then able to parlay that into doing some commercial work in human capital type consulting. And this was all prior to me going to IT Concepts, but the interesting tie-in there is that while I was working for DHS, my mentor at the time, who was the CEO at FPMI, had introduced me to Pinakin Patel. And Pinakin is our CEO and the founder of IT Concepts. So at the time, I was actually supporting Pinakin with helping, kind of stand up IT Concepts more or less and get some of the operating procedures, some of the standard, human capital things you need to get a company going. I had some conversations with him about some of these things through my mentor, Steve Moffett at the time, and he is essentially, we kind of developed a rapport and a relationship then, and I kind of went on my way and did my own thing. And, actually, this is when I was doing some private work. I was doing work all over the world at the time, which was really interesting. I got to travel to Mexico. I went to Albania. We went to Puerto Rico, different places doing human capital work. And then I got an opportunity, and Pinakin reached out to me and gave me an opportunity to come and help him. I tell this often, but I think my wife thought I was crazy. Because she's like, what are you doing? Because at the time, IT Concepts was between 10 and 20 people not really a company. It was more like just a group of people, 1099 people supporting the government in like a mostly subcontractor capacity, right? But I believed in what his vision was for the company, which is always outlandish, and I'll be the first to say he has a very grandiose vision. But honestly, we've met, and exceeded a lot of the expectations up to this point. So
done
again,
well.
it's kind of come to where it is today, obviously for a reason from the vision perspective, and all of those past experiences kind of led me to obviously meeting him and building that relationship, which has now led and to where we are today.
Yeah.
So
That's great. How many full-time employees now?
This is a question like it changes every day. So we have roughly 430 full-time equivalent employees and about 200 to 300 actually subcontractors that support us right now.
Okay. Very cool. And who all do you guys support?
So we support 20 plus federal agencies. So we support agencies in national defense sector. So primarily that would be Defense Intelligence Agency, the Air Force, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, and the component agencies there. And then in the federal civilian space, which is really our largest, market segment, we do work all over the place. Our larger customers would be Social Security Administration. We have a large BPA with SSA and have supported them for years. They're one of our initial customers, along with Defense Intelligence Agency.
Yeah.
We do support of Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the IRS, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the Forest Service, and a number of other agencies to speak of. And then in the health IT sector, we support the VA.
Okay.
And CMS.
Very neat.
Yeah.
So how did you, I always thought it was neat because when we first started working together, I felt like you knew the ins and outs of IT concepts. And maybe that was because of you and Panakin's
Sure.
relationship, but you always seemed to know what was going on with proposals and contracts and
Sure.
just the ins and outs of everything. So how did you make that transition from director of HR to COO? I just think that's a really neat kind of step.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So when you're in a small business, as you know, as anybody who's ever ran a business before or been a part of, starting up a business, you kind of wear many hats, right? And you have to do everything. So when we were smaller, I would say you do everything from taking out the trash to writing proposals to, meeting with customers to doing the necessary administrative work. I mean, you're kind of running the gamut of everything the business requires because you just don't have enough people to do everything, right? So you got to learn the full business. You got to be a part of it. I would also say our culture is such that we're extremely collaborative. To speak to your earlier, your point, I mean, just from interacting with all the folks that have been a part of this business over time, like we all work together very well, and therein lies a lot of the communication that helps you enable that kind of interaction to where I always knew what was going on because I was working very closely with our leadership team, and we had a very unified strategy about how we were going to grow the business. And so, again, I think a lot of it, to speak to progression, I was kind of doing the job of operations always because I was doing all things that were not necessarily tied to my title, which was more human resources. But that was, I guess, my primary function because that's always been my background, has always been in human capital. So I would say, to some extent, I've always kind of operated as more than that, in my opinion, within the company. And because of necessity, I had to, right? And then as we've grown over time, I've obviously done everything I can to shape my skills, to further my relationships with our leadership, with our employees, with our customers, and obviously my business acumen in this space, and that's helped me kind of grow into becoming the COO.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So you guys are an 8A status, so how did you use that strategically to win a lot of work?
Yeah, that's
and
great.
Then also, you guys have a joint venture with Deloitte. So how did that progress, and how did you go from a small business to really the size that you are today?
Yeah, so that's we'll break that into two. That's a two-part question.
Two-tiered
so we'll break that
question.
into
Two
parts
questions
here.
in one.
That's a big question. So the first part, obviously, we're a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business. So Panakin is a veteran, and we also have our 8A designation through the Small Business Administration, and those are two designations that really help you as a small business get what they would call set-aside work. And obviously, the government procures a certain amount of work to those designations to help small businesses thrive and grow. And, it has been the catalyst of our growth. And we've really been able to exhaust and tie a strategy around being able to win that set-aside work and take advantage of that and actually grow within the spaces we are in. So what we've done with that is not only be able to use those statuses, but be able to use the work we've won in the agencies based off of those awards and grow organically within them very well. And I think as a small business, that's what helps you grow in this space, and that's where we've really been successful. So that's the real short answer to what we did with that. I mean, there's obviously more strategic elements to how you do that,
Right.
but the truth is those two statuses have really helped, have been the catalyst for our growth. I mean, it's not the only thing, but it is extremely important to the
And
growth
you, of course.
Right, to a small business. The second part, around our joint venture, it does tie into the first question, but, as a large business, like a company, Deloitte, for example, who is our large business partner in our joint venture, this is an avenue for them to work with companies like ours through different avenues to also gain access back into a small business market if necessary, but also for us to work with a large consulting firm from a mentorship perspective on occasion, also to gain access to a customer base that we might not already have. And so we worked closely with our partners Deloitte. Currently we have 14 prime contracts under our joint venture, which you mentioned. It's called .IT. And it's been a very profitable and a very good venture that we've had. It's an exciting venture. It's helped, again, it's also helped us get into some agencies that we didn't support before. And it's helped us actually grow some additional work outside of our joint venture with them within those agencies and some other spaces. So
Very neat.
it's been a very positive working relationship with Deloitte.
Yes. So tell me about your most recent win, the USAID contract win. That was really exciting news, and really happy for you guys.
Yeah,
as
so
well.
I thank you for that. I think the USAID opportunity we won is it's a 6-year contract, so it's a base plus 5-year period of performance contract with a ceiling value of $193 million, which is a rather large award for us, obviously, as a small business.
It's great.
And it's in human capital operational support. So it's essentially what the work is providing operation support to all of HCTM, which is the human capital arm within USAID. So obviously USAID provides a lot of foreign service work and they're a very mission-oriented agency, and we're really excited about the opportunity to support that mission and to really be, essentially their outsourced provider for human capital, which is really exciting for us. It's kind of an interesting offshoot of the work we've been doing. We essentially have been in the, obviously it's not just a clever name. We're an IT company, of course. So, but a lot, like for what I was mentioning before, for example, my background is in human capital, right?
Right.
So a lot of the work I've done for different agencies or in the space in general in government contracting has been supporting in human capital type contracts. The same goes for some of our other executive team members, Panakin included. A lot of the work that we've done has been more in HR, human resource, IT, HR/IT transformation efforts, ERP implementation, different types of support that tied into human capital. So it only makes sense that we would have a service offering in the human capital arena based off of those experiences, and this ties perfectly into that. It's a little different in that it's operational support than the IT type of work that we've done in the past for other agencies, but nonetheless, it's a great award. It's a great agency, and we're really excited to be able to support them.
It's really neat. Well, congrats on that. I kind of wanted to switch gears, obviously with all of your experience in human capital and then our partnership together and how
Sure.
we've worked together. How would you say, and even from a COO perspective, how does recruiting affect your company and government contracting companies as a whole, the bottom line and your revenue?
Oh boy. Okay, so for us, we're a professional services firm, right? So we don't sell widgets, we don't sell products, we don't, a lot of the defense contractors or a lot of the contractors around Huntsville, for example, they might be tied to missile defense, selling parts and
Manufacturing, yeah.
right? We don't have anything, we're not selling a product. So what we're selling is subject matter expertise and our customer service and the way that we approach providing support to the government. So for us, our people are that's our asset, right? That's the most important thing that we do is bring in talent and bring in top tier talent with subject matter expertise that we can, obviously enable their successes, help grow them, help make them better in the space. But essentially we want to bring in the best and we want to put the best in front of our clients so they get what they need. And in order to do that, you have to have a very strong talent acquisition strategy. You have to have a very strong company culture. And I think we have both. And I think MISC has been a huge part of that over the years in supporting bringing in that top tier talent and supporting bringing in and filling very difficult positions. And you and I both know this isn't easy.
Not always easy.
It's not an easy thing to do. It sounds easy, but it's really difficult. And there's a lot of things in our industry that make it harder than just hiring, for a private company, for example. It's very difficult. So again, the partnership that we've had has really helped enable the growth of our company as well, and it's much appreciated.
It's awesome. What would you say, because you see a broader range of employees than
Sure.
I do, at a different level, of course. But what would you say, other than money, of course, is the big retention factor for employees today? Because, obviously a lot of companies have different strategies
Sure.
centered around this, but what have you noticed is a huge factor in keeping your employees engaged and loyal to the company?
Well, yeah, oh man, it's such a big question. I mean, I think there's so many different components to it. I think for us, one thing that resonates for me is as we've grown, like we used to be a company where everybody knew everybody, like I knew every single person and I knew their spouse, I knew their kids' names, I knew everybody. And as we've gotten to this point, it gets harder and harder to do, right? To do that, to kind of keep that culture where everybody knows everybody, where you feel very connected. And one thing we have always done a very good job of is keeping that as much intact as you possibly can, and always like actually showing that you care, not just acting it, but actually representing that you truly do care. And I think we do care about our people. We take care of them. We have a lot of things set up within the company to help enable their growth from, a professional development standpoint to even just we do things that are fun. I mean, we have a lot of fun as a company. I mean, I think that's one thing you've known. You've been involved in some of our, we have a very good work hard, play hard mentality. And I think you've been a part of some of that. And I think it's a people business. I mean, that's what this is. That's what our business is. And I think you got to meet people where they are. And I think that's something I've learned in my career that I think, do better than most, which has helped enable our success. I mean, you can talk about all strategies all day long, but the truth is you can't make up whether you care or not about your people. It shows through if you don't. And so I would say that's the biggest thing to really retaining people. On top of that, there are things that we have realized over the years. I think the inception of, post-COVID, it's changed. Like the work environment's changed, so you got to listen to your staff. I mean, I think with us it's tough because we're moving to the remote environment. We've done some things around creating a digital headquarters, for example, to enable success for people that may not be seeing you face to face in the office. I feel like I come from an old school, this is kind of weird to say, I come from like the old school environment where you're working like right next to the person all day, or you
Right.
have the water cooler talk types of things going on. And I don't see the workforce going back to where that's ever really truly like that. I think some pockets that'll be that way, but I think we've embraced the fact that people are going to be working remotely in a digital environment, and that has helped us to retain. And again, it's listening to and being conscious of the environment that your people are in, and trying to support that and enable them for success as best you can. So I think, you know.
Yeah, I would say that's one of the challenges nowadays is trying to get people to work in skiffs.
Oh, yeah.
And it's made that even harder after COVID
Absolutely.
because there were a lot of roles even after COVID that we saw with TSs, you know, that were still remote.
Yep.
And had that ability, which that's a lot have shifted back, but then you still have some that are working remote, and that's really hard to compete with. I'm sure you've seen that.
I think in general, like, I think, you know, as you know, trying to recruit in the cleared environment is difficult to begin with.
Yeah.
But if you factor in the, you know, the COVID environment and how that's changed people's perceptions, I mean, I think, as you know, it impacted it greatly, where especially in the hiring cleared individuals that need to go in and be in a skiff, in the government agency providing the support. I think COVID changed people's minds to where they were like, you know what, I don't have to do this anymore, and I could probably still maintain a pretty good lifestyle, good compensation, working somewhere else that I don't have to do this, and I can be at home. Or maybe I want to take a little less compensation and I can do a similar job but be at home.
Right.
Like, that changed a lot of those perceptions for people, and the federal, you know, the federal government. It's a difficult process to get through those clearances. No matter what level you get, it can be a difficult process. Some people just don't want to have to do that anymore. The other part is just the landscape of technology these days. You know, people can have opportunities to work in some environments that are, you know, similar, might have more attractive, you know, technologies they can work on, or bigger budgets that can support some of the activities. And I think that also makes it difficult. So you get a certain sector of people that are very mission oriented, like we've talked about before, that really are gung-ho about supporting the intel community or the DoD space or whatever, that have those clearances. But there's also a skills gap issue there sometimes with folks that you need to overcome, and trying to find the people that have the clearance and the skills and the technical skill set that you want it's a big challenge, and it's hard to find those people, and it's hard to, once you do, keep them, because all the consulting firms and the government themselves are all fighting over the same talent.
Right.
So it's tough.
It's
really tough.
It is very tough.
Yes.
You're also a Huntsville native, Tom. And how long have you lived here? You came from Colorado. Right?
Yes. So I grew up in Colorado, and I've been here since, man, I've been here quite a while. It feels like, you know, I've been here actually close to half my life now. So that's awkward to say now that you just asked. So I've been here for a while, and I think, you know, Huntsville is a incredible community. I think a lot of people, when I moved here, a lot of people said, "You're moving to Alabama? What are you doing? Why would," like, because coming from the West, and I got to be honest, there was a little bit of culture shock moving to Alabama for me, but it's an excellent community to raise a family, I've come to learn. And it's actually a growing, thriving community, which unfortunately there's not as many places that can say that these days. And I think especially in the industry that we happen to be in and support, I think it's an excellent place to be. And the technical community here is amazing. The level of talented people that live in this community, it's incredible. It's top notch. I mean, I certainly spend quite a bit of my time in the DMV, they call it, in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. But, you know, I can't say that I would ever want to leave to live there over Huntsville for sure.
Yeah,
So,
it's tough to compare commute times.
yeah, it is.
In
Yeah,
general.
that is so kind of a funny thing. When I first had moved here, I was on the Parkway and I was listening to the radio, and it said there's heavy traffic, and it happened to be right where I was, and I was looking around, and there's no, it's like nobody on the road. I was like, but there's heavy traffic on the Parkway, and I was on the Parkway, and I realized that it's all relative, right?
It's all relative.
I had lived in D.C. before, lived in Denver even, and people don't know what traffic is here if you think that it's heavy traffic on the Parkway. Now, that has changed over the years. I
That
will
has
say there are
changed.
certain portions that are a
Yep.
little different in Huntsville, but no, it's a great community, and I hesitate to say this, but it's kind of a hidden gem in my mind, and
Yeah,
I just
really
hope it
is.
stays that way. So maybe more people won't come. That'd probably be fine with me.
Maybe we're biased.
Maybe
but-
we're biased. We're biased, yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, I really appreciate you joining us here, Tom, and really have enjoyed learning from you and partnering with IT Concepts as well. There's been a lot of cool projects and positions that we've worked on together, and I look forward to working on more in the future.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.